Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Real Life and Real Love. I am your host, Sarah Michelle, and I am a sex, love, and intimacy coach. Excuse me. And this is Hayley Henderson. She is also hosting with me, and she is a stylist. Would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself?
So my name is Hayley. I live in Brisbane, but I'm from New Zealand, so I have a very different accent to Sarah. I help women dress energetically and physically in their body and enjoy communicating what style has got to say, because within 1/10 of a second, your clothes noisily communicate. And I was addressing it this morning on some comments on TikTok videos with people who were like, oh, that is cheap or that's not very valuable. But these people don't have a social media presence. They have no fashion qualifications, and you don't have to adhere to somebody random's expectations in their head. It's actually smart to dress according to the message you would like to get across. This is why we don't wear pajamas to the boardroom. This is why you wear like a nice, sexy dress on a date, because you have a message to get across. And the faster and more authentic that you can do this as a woman and using your style where you're energetically comfortable in the clothes that you're wearing, the faster you're happier and the easier your message gets across. You don't have to push and work so hard to communicate the things that you want to say. Your clothes can do it for you.
So I actually used some of your training this morning with my daughter. She was trying to get ready and she was really upset about some things. And she already had a shirt on she thought she wanted to wear. But she didn't. She wanted to wear a skirt, but none of them matched. And I said, well, which skirt makes your heart relax, makes your chest open? And she couldn't figure out which one. And I was like, well, maybe it's not a skirt then. I said, does that shirt make your heart open? She's like, no. I'm like, well, let's get rid of the shirt. And so we went to the closet. Anyway, she ended up with this fabulously new outfit. She put on skinny jeans and she took one of her skirts and pulled it up as a tube top. It covered her belly, but because it was loose, it looked flowy and super cute. And then she pulled her hair all to the side and it was a hot pink skirt, I guess, but used as a tube top. And she pulled her hair to the side and tied it with a leopard print silk scrunchie. She was so cute. And her whole attitude and energy and the way she carried herself changed. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope she remembers this moment forever, that you can get dressed intuitively, because it's not something you've worn before or whatever, you can match things in your closet just by feeling them.
Yeah. And the power, we all know, and I've said it so many times to men who just go, oh my goodness, the power of a woman dressing in clothes that she loves and the day that she has. And I get so excited thinking, if you get dressed today in your favorite outfit and you go out into the world, you just not even trying, you go to the school drop off, you go to the supermarket, you go to work, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to come into contact with maybe 20 to 30 people without trying. And if you are happy, you energetically affect those people. They know you're having a good day. They instantly are like, happy, you're having a good day. And so that means, 20 to 30 people that day, without all you did was be a little bit selfish and be like, I want to be my best today. And 20 to 30 people literally were so happy because you were happy. They then go and are just like, we've all had the experience where we're like, I just saw this woman in the supermarket and she was so happy. And you tell your friend, and it just becomes this flow on effect of energy. And men who are married, who their partner is struggling to get dressed, or struggling with their wardrobe, or struggling with their style, or struggling with her body changes or postpartum or whatever is the drama, every time I've had this conversation with men, their faces just go, oh, you're so right. When she wears her favorite outfit, the house is happy, the day is amazing, everything goes really well, and they want that for us too. I was like, imagine if the whole wardrobe was like that. And me, I was like, I'll pay. What is it? How much? How fast can this happen? Because they know that their day is going to, and it's based on something so beautiful. It's not based on extraction for you. It's not based on having to buy clothes. It's not based on having to fit into some standards. It's not based on draining your energy in any way, shape, or form. It's actually just being me. What do I want to wear? How do I want to feel? Are there clothes in my wardrobe already that are things that I love, and just dressing like that every single day, and everybody else's life actually becomes happy because you just put on an outfit you like. Like, it's so magical, and it's free, especially if you already own the clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wonderful. So, how about if we talk about what we came to talk about today, which is totally different than fashion? We're going to talk about sex because it's fun. So, you and I were just discussing this whole narrative or kind of commonly held belief in society that when you're with someone you really like, maybe if it's at the beginning of a relationship or you're further in and you've already decided you love this person, that the sex should somehow be great and magical and lighting all these sparks and all this sort of stuff. And that's not always true. And unfortunately, some people take that as a sign that this isn't the right person to be with, you know? Like, they're like, oh, the sex is supposed to be phenomenal with the right person. I'm supposed to have all these sparks and everything. And then they're like, so you must not be it. But I think you were talking about your own personal experience. I know I told you I had an experience with someone where it was not magical from the beginning, but I liked him so much, and there was still this super strong connection between us. And we actually had to have a lot of conversations around it. And I luckily, because of what I do, I had a sex coach at the time. So I had someone to talk through it with and kind of start figuring everything out with. And it did take some conversations, some uncomfortable conversations.
It does, and men have this expectation by default of we're all learning it because we're all having the conversations now, thanks to like video and YouTube and TikTok and social media, where by default, based on society, cultural, marketing, conditioning, whatever you want to call it, that men assume you haven't been with many people or any at all. But somehow you know what to do. Like, that every time I've had that conversation with somebody, it's like, okay, yeah, that's silly. Because how would you know? How would you know?
Right. You don't pick up a violin and just start playing it.
No, and this is like, sex is so much more important than, not saying music isn't, but it's so important because like this is how close you let somebody in. As you know, we've talked about in previous videos, like receiving and letting somebody in your energy space. And there's so many things we could even talk about in terms of like that fierce independence and the armoring we put up. And then when you've been through life situations and horrible divorces or breakups or abusive relationships, and the physical and or energetic armoring you put up, let alone childhood trauma, let alone literally you are too busy to even like stop and relax because you will just fall asleep. Like, there's so much to this, and it's hard to have conversations as well. It's hard to say to somebody, hey, I don't actually know what I'm doing. Or, hey, I had somebody say to me once, what did they say? Something about, because it was like the first time for intimacy, and they'd said something, and I said, oh, they said, what do you like? And I was like, do you know what? I don't know yet because we haven't been together. And he was like, oh my God.
He's
Like,
expecting you to listen to what some other guy did.
and he was like, you know, you could almost hear how much like he like punched his own stomach in terms of, oh, okay, that's gross in some regards. But also how logical it was. Like, he's like, that is so, yeah, okay. And I was like, and he goes, you know what, you're right. Sometimes the first time with somebody, it's not as magical as we'd like. And I was like, of course, because we can then practice if we like each other, and you can have good conversations. You can help that person like be invited into like your world because you're receiving, and you can invite them in. And as women, we let them into it can feel so violating. Like, if you're with somebody and you don't want to let them in, yet they come in, like, how violating does it feel? Versus the exact same thing. Like, it's a man, it's the same type of intimacy that may be going down on you or something, but you want him to be there. It's the exact same thing, but your emotions, your energetic presence, particular conversations, that specific, like, it's the same thing when you think about it, but it's like, it's not actually necessarily the action. And if it's a new person and a new energy, and if you are doing your homework and you are like upgrading from the past relationships that didn't work,
You're
this
home.
right, like with this new person, it's gonna be brand new. There's unexplained territory. There are conversations at this stage in our life. We're coming to the plate with baggage. We're not saying, hey, you got to hold my baggage, but damn, we got some kids, we've got some past relationships. Like, we can't say I'm a blank slate. I don't know.
I think it's so funny you brought that back up because when we were talking about this beforehand, before we started our recording, I put in quotes on my paper because you said it naturally. You said there's still plenty of time to practice. And I was like, that is like the perfect perspective to have because it's like, you know what? If you're going into this relationship with the intention that it's going to be long term, at least as long as it works, of course there's going to be plenty of time to practice. Like, why does it all have to be done now? Why does it all have to be experienced or perfect or ready now?
And you get to like,
Give
it's
yourself
almost,
space.
yeah, when you first make a cake or you first drive the car, like, you didn't do a good job that first time. And it's less, well, on the scale of importance of like physical intimacy and trust and moving and living your best life. And like, if you have had a really good orgasm, how good is your day for the rest of the day? Or like, how good do you sleep? Like, this stuff's pretty important.
Well, and that's a good point is like you do need trust and safety. And some of that stuff is built over the course of the relationship. So, can you have good sex early on and have like a good, let's say, clitoral orgasm? Yeah. But some of those things that you're really going to experience that are going to be more of this full body thing, that requires some surrender, some trust. And that's got to be created inside the relationship. And depending on how you guys are vibing with each other and how, I kind of hate to say it this way, but like healed you are,
Yeah.
um, that's all going to matter. And actually, I want to bring up like the whole soulmate and spirituality side of this because you know that I love that side of it. And I love coaching to help people connect with their actual soulmates. And when you choose that sort of romance, like using the term soulmate doesn't mean I'm getting the perfect Disney prince and everything's magical. It literally means we've had multiple lifetimes together and we chose to be together in this lifetime, which means we have all these other patterns and things to work out and heal together. And that's why we chose to come together, was to work through this stuff. So there will be good moments and there will be healing moments. And so when you start to bring those bodies together sexually, that's going to bring all that up. So you have to be available for these conscious conversations of, this isn't working for me, or this hurts, or I'm uncomfortable when we do that. And of course, it'll probably start out like every other relationship that's mostly physical, but it's going to start going deeper and deeper. You're going to hit, like, I know from my own experience, I've hit walls every now and then where it's like, well, I don't know what's going on because from the outside, our relationship looks great, but like I'm hitting a wall somewhere. And that's when I have to go deeper and start looking at it from more of a spiritual and definitely a past life perspective and stuff. And I want to mention too, as I'm bringing this up, when I talk about past lives, I don't truly believe that we have to go back and get every detail. If I can recognize, oh, this must be a past life pattern, then I can hand it off. I personally like to hand it off through prayer to my angels because that's enough. They're going to know what I'm talking about now and they can take care of it. You can do it however feels good to you, but I don't necessarily think just because we're working through things spiritually and we're living with soulmates and stuff like that, that it has to be like so heavy and that all of our attention has to be going into the past life stories and stuff like that. In fact, I feel like that can be hard. I actually worked with a psychic at one point that gave me details on a specific past life, and they were horrendous. And I was like, it's been a couple of years now and I still haven't forgotten those details. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have never known that. But like, live and learn, right? Like, not every psychic's good. Not every psychic you know, they might still be learning some of those lessons. Like she might now be like, oh, I traumatized a few of my past clients and I won't be sharing details. Like, I don't know. I didn't go back to her because of it. But you know, the person that I do use regularly will just be like, when I'm explaining a problem, she'll be like, that's a past life pattern. And here's what you need to do to clear it. You know, she doesn't go in and say, you did this, he did that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you don't actually really. The other thing I did want to say was, I mean, I guess we're talking about taboo stuff, but if a man gets with a woman and she like intimately surrenders fast without actually like, I'm not saying specifically one night stands, but those are easier to like measure this against. Like straight away, there is no resistance. He doesn't have to build any trust. He doesn't have to do any of those things where it just feels natural. You want to know that person's surname. Well, not everybody, but you want to know stuff about this person and who you're being intimate with, and it feels important. And if a woman just completely surrenders straight out of the gate, a man just doesn't find that necessarily respectful. And so he'll just be like, oh, yeah, which is, you know, I think the rise to people saying, oh, well, she was easy. We did it the first night. And then he doesn't need to go back there again. Because there's also that conversation where it's like she didn't put up a challenge or she didn't put up the trusting. Men like to be involved. They like to do stuff. And if there's nothing to do, he's like, oh, bye. Like there isn't a participation in this experience. And because it's so cut and dry for them, specifically in relation to sex, which is different to us energetically and emotionally, I've just noticed that over time men will say the exact same thing, and I'm like, interesting. Is it because there was no work there? I'm not saying all men want to work. Those are conversations and agreements. But in what we're talking about, like where it takes time, the first time isn't necessarily magical. The first time you may not orgasm. The first time he may just orgasm pretty fast, and he'll feel like he's failed. And that's a good opportunity to have an intimate conversation, because what I believe is that is not a bad thing. Like sometimes it indicates he hasn't been with somebody for a while, and that's a green flag. Like that is, he's not just out there doing whatever he wants and then you don't know. And then he also is obviously very attracted to you. That's definitely a green flag if we're ever going to put one. And so he's been honest and authentic in these couple of areas, and he's not held back. And you know, we're not grading, like we're not at high school, we're not judging people on certain things, we're deeper than that. That's why we have these conversations. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that. Like, and men will be like, I'm so sorry, and it's like, I'm not. Like, it ticks some really nice boxes where I don't have to awkwardly ask you, so you went for 3 hours. One, I'm sore. Two, we didn't have conversations about.
Which told men we wanted it to last forever. It's like they went from, oh, we don't want quick ejaculation to, we want 2 hours of sex. Oh, the fuck we don't.
I think it's the cultural around porn and other stuff, but I think it's just, it helps you know that person's activities, I guess you would say. And if you're wanting to be in a relationship with somebody and they are used to going around and getting with different people, whether they've consciously decided they want an intimate long-term relationship with you or not, sometimes if they're biochemically used to sleeping with a lot of people, they don't necessarily find it easy to cut that off overnight. So it's work for you as a person, and it's work for them as a person. And if he orgasms straight away and he's embarrassed about it, just have a conversation. And I think it's not the worst thing in the world ever. I think it's probably all the green flags, and it's an opportunity to have that conversation and be like, dude, it's fine.
Oh, wow. Could be. The only guy I've been with that was I'm just speaking from personal experience. The only guy I've been with that was like super quick, like under a minute quick, that was not a green flag with him. But there was other things going on.
It's just general, but it like, because everybody's unique, and that's why it is important to have these conversations, and to you go on first dates and when you wear clothes that communicate what you want to say, and you've spent time educating yourself, like watching these shows and reading books and having really conscious conversations with girlfriends, and then you'll go, okay, What does this mean? How does this feel for me? I'm not trying to fit into a box. I'm trying to work out what feels good for me. And then what are the functionalities that I would like in my life? And if he was embarrassed and he's like, I can do that different, it's like, okay, cool, let's practice.
Let's practice. I think one of the biggest challenges for me, I didn't have a really active sex life before I got married because we got together when I was 18. So I had barely slept with anyone. Um, but post divorce, when I started sleeping, I think the size difference was what threw me off. Moving from guys having different sizes. And so, no, you don't experience that. I don't know. I was just listening to something. I think it might have been on TikTok where he was like sharing a report of like the largest and smallest sizes. Fun. And how they like were spread out across the country. So it was just kind of like a pop culture sort of conversation. But anyway, like it was a deal for me because I guess I had gotten used to, I'd been with the same person for 14 years. So I'd gotten used to a certain size. And let's just face it, I'd been married for 10 of those 14 years. I'd gotten used to a certain routine. So all of a sudden it was like I needed to learn new positions, new angles, new ways to do things depending on how the fit was. So, not so much that I needed it to be a certain size, just how to adapt to the situation, which really to me came back to learning a whole lot about my erogenous areas so that I knew, okay, well, when I move this way, I can feel it like that. When I tilt to this side, or like, especially like if they're smaller, more foreplay to me anyway is necessary because the more foreplay you have, the more the whole area engorges. So then it's getting smaller, tighter, and it's easier to feel everything. Whereas you don't necessarily need all that in order to feel stuff with a larger one. You can still, I mean, I still think, can you hear all of this? Is that what you're laughing about?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
My screen was very time appropriate. I was like, it is.
Oh, this is rough. Um, yeah, but I think that was my biggest challenge post divorce was figuring that out. Which honestly,
Yeah.
Google helped me a shit ton with.
Well, you do get stuck in routines. When you've been in a long term relationship, and if you happen to match up with somebody who hasn't been in a long term relationship, you by default, like, especially if you had a couple of drinks, especially if you're so like, oh my God, we're going to do this and this is how it's going to be. I did it once after I broke up with my baby daddy, like a few years after that. And I was like, huh. And I was in a routine from years prior to that that I didn't even like. And I remember stopping in the moment just going, I don't even like doing that. Huh. And that's just about, we learn about our bodies. And I had somebody say to me, I actually do not know what the topic was, but I've done a number of courses to re-educate myself. And one of them was Kim Minami's course. I think we mentioned that previously. Well, all of her stuff, but one of her courses in particular. And I did it when I was single. And so I was like, oh, okay, so what was that like? And I said, do you know what? I just had to learn about myself. I'm not bad. I think it was probably the best version of doing it. And he was like, what do you mean? Because men don't have the same experience with us. Like, they literally wake up out of bed and they have, self experience, where we're so used to being vessels, we're so used to catering, we're so used to organizing and stuff, which is why these conversations are important. But it's so fascinating when a man just goes, uh, what? You were like in your 30s before you figured yourself out? Yeah. And
I
I
think
had to
women have that experience.
pay.
I think a lot of women have that experience that it's later in life instead of just doing it early on. I know, like, I did it early on, but then once I got to the point of dating, it was like I stopped doing it for myself. Like, I just thought, oh, okay. I'm old enough and I can with a partner. And so this is what I'm doing. And it took me until, I'm going to guess I was 27. I mean, it was my late 20s before I started exploring the idea of it again. And it felt really taboo. And then, but at least from that point, I started doing it from a place of like discovering myself, right? It wasn't just about reaching climax. It was about like, what can I explore? What can I, and actually, I think we need to have a whole episode on female masturbation. I don't know what title we would put on that video that wouldn't attract a bunch of creeps, but I think we need to talk about it because it is so taboo and hush hush that a lot of people don't talk about it. But dang, one of the things that happens is I think women do this more than men. I could be wrong here, but in my experience from the people I talk to, women have a tendency to stay single longer when their standards are high. When they have decided, like, this is the type of relationship I want to be in, they have a tendency to pull back and be like, okay, who do I need to be? What do I need to heal? How do I get ready for this? And so they'll spend, 3, 6, 9 months, maybe even more than a year single. And that's just like being in a long-term relationship or a marriage where you get used to your own routine. So then when you go back to being physically with someone, well, it doesn't match up.
Yeah.
Because we actually, I don't think a lot of people realize, at least as women, I'm assuming it's the same for men, but I know this through women. We train ourselves to orgasm. We teach our body how to do that. So if we are routinely doing it with the same tool or the same way, in the same position, like whatever it is, that's how our body learns to orgasm. So then when you go and you're using a man instead of your hand or whatever, or, you're sitting instead of laying or whatever it is, your body doesn't necessarily know how to do it from there. And that can be a super frustrating experience because then you think the sex isn't good or that you can't come through sex, you can only come through masturbation, but it's not necessarily true.
Or you'll think this is not my person because
even worse.
We think this person is meant to be amazing. That was one of the things that I did learn in Kim Anami's teachings, not necessarily in her course. She talked about how you can train your body different areas to respond orgasmically by up with more sensitive parts like the lips with the lips. And if you do that every single time, you can actually train it so you can remove one hand and actually have orgasmic experience just touching your lips on your face.
Right.
There's a lot of experiments you can have in terms of that. So I do adore her stuff because she steps up, like, totally taboo. Even the names of her courses are like, that's out there. But her stuff's totally relatable, and I like the way that she talks about, sometimes, size makes a difference, but what you can do about that. So she'll bring you back into reality. She'll bring you back into, in her courses, walks you through how we've been desensitized or oversensitized, and she recommends like no battery devices, or if you have a device, like no batteries in it at all. Recommends like a 30-day challenge without any batteries or devices, like little things where you get to know yourself, but then also get to know yourself in a non-traditional sexual type way where you're not just touching your private areas, you're actually getting to know, like you said, your erogenous zones, your zones in your body that react and feel different. And it's in different ways and at different times of the day. So it's not just at bedtime. It's not when just the lights are out. It's not just with a toy. It's not just with a man. It's actually, which is what I love and which is what we love in having these conversations, is it's full ownership of your body as a woman. And how do I want to feel? What clothes make me feel that way? What experience with a man makes me feel that way? How do I surrender my best? What do I know about me? And who am I? Like, asking these questions without feeling like there's anything crazy. And in fact, you can try it on. It's like trying on clothes. You can just try on that outfit and be like, I'm going to be a different person today. I've got a red and white stripe jumpsuit. So it's like, it's up high neck, but it goes all the way to the floor and it's stripes like a candy cane, but it's like dead straight stripe. Every time I put it on, I'm like, this is the funnest outfit I could ever wear. There's nothing magical about it, but because my association with the loose fit of it and that it looks like a candy cane, it just reminds me of like candy and Christmas. And every time I put it on, I'm like, I have the best time ever. And that is something that I've built up. But for other people, they may put that on and be like, what the F is this? And so these are the times where we can have conversations, have questions, explore things on. You can try on the outfit. You can have the experience with the man. You can be at home and have different experiences with yourself. You can educate yourself. You can have conversations with girlfriends and find out what we talk about all the time, reality. Not what somebody's point of view is, not what somebody else tells you is fact, but actually living and exploring reality. And that it's okay that you don't know. It's okay the first time you're with somebody and it's not magical. It's okay that you've never explored by yourself. Because if that's reality, it's okay. And there's nothing wrong with you. And that's why these conversations are so important and why we love talking, because we're in two different countries, completely different cultures. Like I grew up in New Zealand where it's highly multicultural and we learn multiple languages and different spiritual teachings and recognitions of the land and indigenous cultures and things. Coming to Australia, I've been here since I was 20 and learning a very different perspective. Like I still hear things and I'm like, oh my goodness. How are we living on this land and just so disconnected? And then like learning how to be here, and then we have conversations, even some words we're like, what was that word? What does that mean?
I mean,
Well, the accent, like, what did you say?
I
And
still like that you call it the garage. Did I say it right?
and it's okay to have these conversations. It's okay to not know. It's okay to consciously explore things, because you could, intimate wise, you can have a conscious hug with a new lover and just be like close and learn how to feel that trust again. Because if you've had trauma from past relationships, or you've had that default setting for how sex and orgasms function by yourself or in a partnership, it's a good idea to like practice just being around this new person and saying, can we just like hug? Like, I don't know what it's called, but there's a position where the man will sit like lotus position, like cross-legged. You sit on top facing him, and you put your legs around him and arms around him. So you're like sort of on top, and you cross your legs and just breathing together and being in that space. Most of the time, men freaking love that, and it's not an expectation to have sex. It's actually an expectation to just be present with each other, and it'll probably turn intimate because you've got a connection and you want to build on that, and you want to build on that together. So you can do stuff that's non-sexual but just invites you into having a new experience.
I totally agree. And a bunch of the stuff you just said right now brought up so many more ideas. But we are through with our time for today. So I think we should do a second episode and continue on this topic. It feels important to me, and I feel like I still have so much more to say, and clearly you do too. So let's talk some more about it in our next episode. Thank you for being here today, Hayley.
Bye.
Bye.